Good afternoon, First Additional Language. It is now the 1st of October and we're well and truly into lockdown 1. And I'm sending this recording all the way from Oudtshoorn. It's quite a big day, maybe the same as PE, but rainy there as well. But it's good to be with you, and we are already in week 8. So let's see what we've got in store. I'm going to share my screen with you now. There we go. Yes. Right, we are still with writing, and tonight we're going to look at designing different genre writing activities. And basically I'm going to focus on not making writing boring. So we're going to try and look at different ways we can use resources to make writing far more attractive and fun for students. But before we get to that, I'm just going to go back to the Mentimeter. I see a few of you did complete the survey, and this is what it looks like now. There were exactly 10 of you out of about 32, and it seems like definitely the product approach was what was used in most schools. Process approach, only 3 seem to know that it was the stage-by-stage writing process, and there was no one using the genre approach. I'm sure if you think closely about that, you'll see that the genre approach may well have been used in the schools. Right, let's have a look at our spreadsheet. You can see there are still reds and blacks here. So obviously the reds make me feel a bit sad and daunted, especially if you look at the online tracking. I'm not sure what's happening here. For SP, there are 19 of you that are active here, and for week 7, only 11 of you completed the actual task for online tracking. Maybe it was with the assignment coming in, assignment 2, that most of you felt that you couldn't do it. And it seems like we've got a sort of standard 6, standard 6 of you that still do the FETs. So 6 out of 9 is not too bad. And if I look at your assignment submission for assignment 2, 16 of the 19 of you have submitted your assignment 2. And for the FET, the standard 6, I suppose, not 8 of you, 6 of the 9 have submitted. But maybe some of you going for second opportunity assessments. I know some of you had problems, so we'll see what happens with that. Okay, right, so we've completed all this for Unit 2. Writing practices, the process approach, different genre writing activities last week, and today we're going to look at writing resources. We're going to look at Ferreira's hasn't got very much in that, and I've used another textbook for this. I'll give you the reference now, and we'll complete with the assessing of writing next week. This is going to be a Moodle task. It won't be a recording. We're going to look at different ways we can actually assess writing. So that will be the last one for Unit 2. Right, so this is the outline of my lesson this afternoon or this evening. Writing activities to prevent boredom. Yes, and there you can see the bored students. And we're going to look at writing resources for every stage of the writing process. And we've got 10 types of resources we could use creatively in the classroom. I'm going to start off with diary writing. Then we're going to look at writing classroom letters, because this means you've got a real live audience to which you can share your letter with. Then a combination in section 3 of looking at short dialogues, only 4 lines, strange stories, which can be fun, speech bubbles, and how to complete cartoons, and looking at headlines. Then the next 3 will be pictures with minor differences. I think you've done this as children, and we'll describe what that is. Letters of advice, agony auntie type letters, where you can give people advice on how to solve their problems. Picture strip stories. Then finishing off with writing a class newspaper, which can be quite fun, which can be published once a month, where you can write real life stories of things that are happening in the schools. Then section 8, completing stories, completing forms if you're going for an interview, and then fast writing. What is that all about? Right. And I got this basically from Vessels. Vessels is a resource or a reference in all the libraries. This is the 2010 edition. There is, I think, a 2014 edition now. It's called Practical Guide to Facilitating Language Learning. And they've got wonderful exercises, not only for writing, but for reading, for speaking, for listening. So I would really advise you to get that. It's quite a good reference. Right, so let's start with diary writing, number 1. Diary writing is a good activity because it encourages your students to write about their experiences, what they've experienced, their thoughts and their feelings, which enables them to write quite an informal writing style because it's their own personal writing, which is quite nice for them. And this also gives them practice in expressing themselves in writing. And it also creates creative writing skills, but please be sure that if it is a diary, you've got to respect their privacy obligations, and they should never feel obliged to share their diaries if they don't want to. Let's go on. Right, so it gives them a chance to write about good experiences and feelings, and this awakens often happy thoughts when they go on to read their diaries later on. There we go, we've got my diary, and happy thoughts are with mom, love. Yeah, but there's also a bit of hate here with my brother and pimples, schools maybe, and sisters. So it's a whole combination of things in diaries. They can also write about bad experiences and feelings. And this also gives writers a chance to go back to their writings and look more objectively at what was happening at a later date and try and make sense of what happened. Dear diary, I hate school. Something in maths I got, and it's so embarrassing. So those things that you can share with your diary and you don't have to show anyone, but it gives you practice in expressing yourself. One way you can approach diaries is through a collection of words, and this helps them to get the vocab to express themselves. How can you do this? This is in a series of steps. It helps them to have words so they can express themselves precisely in their diaries. And the first stage is they will list words under certain headings, and I'll show you a table of that just now. For instance, sport, travel, animals, love, city, friends, etc., etc. Also, positive words, different kinds of positive words they can use, like I like that, or negative words like definitely not. So they create this whole collection of words under which they will include words that they could use to express certain things. A nice thing in stage 2 is that they can get together in pairs, then in 4s, then in 8s, and they can look at their friends' words. And in step 3, if they like any of those words, they can add them to their list as well. Here's an example. Here you see I've got people, nature, happy, sad, gentle, harsh, young, cities. And there are different words you can see. For instance, people, you get tall people, petite people, kind people, hurtful. So they will maybe make a table like this with maybe the different words at the top and maybe 4 of each. Then they can go and share with their friends, and they can add on to their table. So they can have an active table happening of words that they could use to describe different things. Also, they can write about themselves and friends, and this is quite nice to use tables to do this. What they could do is get pictures that remind themselves of themselves. And these don't have to be real pictures. They could be things like people, trees, hearts, storms, or they could draw things that represent who they are as a person. The second step, then they can start writing a paragraph describing what they are like, both their personal and their physical characteristics. Then they can possibly draw their own personal coat of arms, which can be fun. There's a South African one. And there are lots of templates where they can put together 4 things about themselves and draw their own coat of arms, which would be quite a fun exercise with a motto or slogan too. Here's an example of, they can then collate with their friends, their name, their age, their likes and their dislikes. For instance, Jackie, who's 15, likes coffee, friends, cycling and clothes. Dislikes exams, selfishness, bullies, and cold water. So you get a nice mix of what different people like or dislike. Then they can write classroom letters, which is quite fun because they are going to be writing for an audience within their classroom. So the way you can do this is the teacher would have 2 boxes in the classroom. In the one box, you'd have names of all the learners in the class, 3 of each of them on separate small pieces of paper. And in box 2, they're going to have separate sheets with 2 or 3 kinds of information they've got to go and find out from someone else. I'm going to give you an example of this just now. So the learner will go and pull out 3 names. If it's their own, they must obviously put it back in the box, as well as in the second box, a piece of paper with different kinds of information they must get. Kind of information you can have on those lists are like birthdays, second names, brothers, sisters, languages that they speak, favorite mobiles, favorite music, books, everything else. And so they might pull out 3 names, Jackie, Ayanda, and Thomas. And their list they pull out is favorite foods, I think it is, pets, and dislike. All right. So what happens is in step 3, they write letters to those learners whose names they draw to try and find out the information that they need to get from that student. For example, dear Jackie, please could you tell me what your favorite food is? You see, question form. Can you also tell me whether you have any pets? What do you really dislike? Yours sincerely, Ayanda. So he's going to write this to Jackie. It's a real audience, and she's going to have to answer him. After they've received the information, they will record this information on a form they exchange with a partner. So this kind of form they could have. So on the form, they're going to write the name, the date, the personal details, the family details, likes, dislikes, hobbies, other information, who the researcher was. So they will compile a list of this. And in this way, they can get to know the learners in the class quite well, and they can learn to exchange answers, which also assure that they've got an interested audience. Right, what else could you do with this kind of thing? You can send an invitation. So this could be a spin-off to your classroom to go to movies. You give, and in the letter, you'll give the movie details, the dates, the time, and the place. And then also you could have a letter of congratulations. You give the details, winning a prize, scoring a goal, getting full marks, and how you can congratulate a colleague about that. This is number 3. It's a whole combination of things, starting with short dialogues of 4 lines, strange stories, speech bubbles, and headlines. Right, so what you could say to them, okay, these are the 4 things. Now go and find an example of each of these. So that could be the first task. Then they can write their own. So they can have a picture of a short dialogue, and then they could write their own underneath, and same with the others. Then they could go into pairs, then groups of 4, then groups of 8, and they can check and they can correct their writing. So this is the whole peer assessment that comes in quite nicely as part of the process approach. And then they can share the examples of the class, maybe one from each group can for each of those, or they can role play their dialogues, which might be quite fun. You look cute today. And he says, thanks. Here's an example. A says, hi, I need help, please. B says, where are you? A says, I'm down here. B says, down where? Oops. Now I'm down there too. So you've got this short little dialogue that goes on, which can be quite fun. Strange stories is still part of this. This is a story about Polani, who looked out the window and saw a dinosaur outside her bedroom. And she blinks her eyes and she shakes her head. And he raises his foot to knock on the glass. But she's so stunned, and she opens the window. And as soon as he gets inside, he starts chewing her furniture. And she says, please don't do that. And he says, why not? She says, it's not even paid for. And she bursts into tears. So the little dinosaur sits down and says, very well, I won't eat your furniture, but please bring me some wood to chew. And from that day on, they lived happily after. He was her friend, and she kept him supplied with wood. So these are fun little strange stories that they could write about. Speech bubbles, you can introduce them to the different kinds of speech bubbles that there are. There's the first one is speech. That's what a thought looks like. That's what a whisper looks like. That's what bursts look like. That's a radio. And there's telepathic different speech bubbles. So this is an example. You've got thinking A, there's thought, and speaking B. Oh, I can't stand this person, and you say to him, oh, hello, how are you? So nice to see you. And then the other person C would answer. Different kinds of headlines, but the whole thing of COVID-19, I think you're so sick of it. But anyway, there's been lots of headlines from no vaccine to pandemic confirmed. It'll be borders open now, will be the headline that'll happen this evening. And your breaking news all over the world, there's Trump, there's all things are happening with the new elections that are happening in our country, so much happening. But we also have positive news. We can travel again, so those are good things that are going to happen. Number 4, describing pictures with minor differences. I think this could be quite fun. If you have a look at this picture, you've got a very slim person and quite an obese person. And they've looked at the same height, they've got the same trunks on, but you need to describe the minor differences with that. So in pairs, you would look at these 2 pictures and make a list of all the differences that you can actually see on that. Then each learner takes one of the two pictures. So you may take the one with the large gentleman, and someone will take one with the thin gentleman, and they will write paragraphs to describe the picture. Then you'll read each other's paragraphs and make constructive suggestions. Revise. Remember this process approach, so we're using feedback to improve our writing. Then you can exchange your paragraphs and your pictures with another group, and they must try and pair the paragraph with the picture. All right, so that could be another task. Here's some more pictures. Go onto the internet, so look for pictures with differences. And here you've got two people sitting there. Look at their hands, look at their feet, look at their trousers. What are the differences? Yeah, we've got also an interesting one. We've got a girl and we've got a guy, and there are interesting differences and similarities there as well. Right, number 5. This is quite a fun exercise, is responding with letters of advice to people. Yes, each learner will get a letter from Problem Pages or Agony Auntie. And here's an example. Dear Dr. Mercy, without asking, I borrowed my brother's motorbike. Then I had a slight accident and the paint is scratched. Because I don't have a license, he cannot claim from insurance. He's so furious, he won't talk to me, and I am miserable. Can you help, please? Unhappy borrower. So you give a pseudonym. You don't give your real name. And then someone's got to respond to that. So the students will then respond. They'll pretend to be the agony aunt or Dr. Merciful or Dr. Mercy, and they'll answer. And here's an example. Dear unhappy borrower. And here's a whole thing, gives him a bit of a reason why he shouldn't do what he's doing. Never drive if you don't have a license. You'll be in so much more trouble. And if you have been caught like that, do not borrow anything without asking. If you do, you could be accused of theft. And then she goes on to tell him how he can possibly make more money. He could go and wash cars, clean houses, and then he should make an attempt to repair the paintwork on his brother's motorbike. So you can give advice. So number 6 is picture strip stories. This can be quite fun. You've got to think of what you can put in the bubbles to make a story. So each learner gets their own little picture strip story. Each one the same initially, then maybe all different ones. They've got to use the pictures to construct the story of what they think happened and what the characters said in each of those pictures. And then they can construct the story discussing the event with their partners. Here we've got pairs working together, but each will write their own story separately. Then they're going to look at their friends' stories, correct, revise if needed, and then the teacher can show them the original story and they can see how different it is. And there are so many wonderful blank type of characters here that you can see in these cartoons. Someone walking his dog, you can see the thought bubbles coming from the dog's head, and all that happens there ends up winding himself around a tree. There's an interesting one of the cop chasing off a car, getting to that car, and there's a whole lot of clowns in it, and you've got to try and think about the dialogue that's happening there. Quite like this one. Here you've got a friend and 2 friends playing video games, having great fun. You can see they are so animated. The dad comes in there and looks at his watch. Time to go, get upstairs. And what we see in the last cartoon, they look down and there's dad's having a good time with the video games. So something nice to finish off like that. Makes them creative as well. Class newspapers, I think, is quite a nice thing because you need to know what the formatting is for a newspaper, and there's so many things that they need to know about it, right from the front page headline to advertisements to editorial columns, fashion, sport, games, and they can create their own newspaper with the title, the main heading, different sections. Here we've got the newsletter, here we've got sports, here we've got school news, here we've got people and praise, and here we've got student life. So there's different types of things they can write about. Where this can be done in groups of 4, they can be each responsible for a section. So for instance, if they are the sports section, each of those 4 will have to write a sports article. So not just one article, but 4. For instance, Jody is practicing hard for an athletic season, or is the school going to build a swimming pool? Tor Mapu scores the winning goal. The green team wins the soccer again. And then they would put their names at the bottom of the article. Right, step 3. All the members again read the articles that their friends have written, make suggestions, constructive criticism, and revise. and then they submit the page for the newspaper publication. Step 4, you can have your editorial group who can proofread the page before they finally accept it. If the group finds an error in that group section, remember it's been through step 3 already, so it should be fine, that group loses a mark. Yeah, they don't really like that. The group that finds the errors gains more marks. So this will encourage everyone to be more careful with their writing. With the newspapers, copies can be made available, printed out, or they can be placed somewhere in the classroom. Groups can prepare different sections in different editions. They can publish once a month, once a week, once a term. This one's a weekly report, and you can see all the different kinds of topics there. The Cubs win against the Bears this week. Productivity tips to help you for your examination. A beginner's guide to classic literature. Perfecting your college application. So all the different stories that you'll find in these different editions of the newspaper. Okay, weekly report. Completing a story is quite nice. You give them a story. They can either do the middle paragraph and the last paragraph, or they can just give the final paragraph. In this one, the first one, the teacher gives me the story. What's happening in the one that you can see here is you've got Gillian. Her mom walks into the room and she's packed out everything. Her suitcase, her cupboard, her bed's all over the place, and her mom's very shocked and says, look at your room, what's happening? And she's like, I can't find my glasses anywhere. She complained. I've looked everywhere. And you've got to write the final paragraph for that. So what actually happens? Here's another one. It's called The Solver. It's also about Kevin, who likes mysteries, and his mom uses her glasses, much like I do mine as well. And he goes through all the stages of where she has been. And you've also got to construct the story again and come out at some solution. Here's an interesting one. This is just the first paragraph, and they're going to write the second and the third paragraph. It's quite an interesting topic. It says, everyone seems to have got used to having a world with no color. No one understood why colors suddenly disappeared 10 years ago. So the whole thing is about colors going and leaving our world. And then the last sentence of that paragraph says, he's on his way to school, and there he sees a single purple flower hanging against the grapevines that lined the walkway. He yelled for his mother, and there you can see the picture of this purple flower that comes out. You're going to do paragraph 2, and then you're going to conclude, bringing color back to our world, hopefully. I quite like this one. It's work application forms, which I think is quite important because everybody needs to work. So in pairs, they're going to advertise part-time work for learners. You can decide on the position that needs to be filled. It could be a waiter, waitress, any kind of crafty designer stuff, and you can draw up an application form to be completed for the position. So you can include things such as your name, age, marital status, qualifications, your health, previous experience, references. And so here's an example of Pete's Cafe, and they want a waiter or waitress and all the information they would need from the person: the name, the address, the mobile ID, driver's license, marital status, qualification, experience, references. Then the pairs exchange forms and complete the forms, and then they interview each other and discuss the information on the application form. So it's quite a nice way of speaking and filling in forms. And you can go online. There are plenty of examples of different kinds of application forms. This with all the personal details, and it's good for students to practice learning to fill in forms as well. Right, fast writing is my last one. This proves to learners that they can write. Okay, you can see she's writing very fast. First rule is learners must not stop writing, and they must write whatever they think. And they're going to have to do this for 2 minutes. And this is quite a long time if you're actually trying to write something. So they've got to get practiced in doing this. But that's the rule. Keep on writing. This activity will help learners to express themselves fluently. This is what research has shown. But fast writing products will not be flawless or perfectly relevant. So whatever's coming into from your head is often a mess and it's chaotic. So whatever you're writing might be a whole lot of jumble some of the time. Nothing will link, maybe irrelevant, but you are writing, so that's the most important thing. Write for 2 to 3 minutes. Maybe start with 1 minute, then go to 2, then 3 minutes, and do this at least 3 times a week. At the end of the class, say for 2 minutes, you're going to write now for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever the time might be. and the speed will improve as you do it. So this is some useful websites that I've come across. I found that Pinterest has really got some great worksheets and ideas for just about anything that you might need. Also the site here, Writing to Learn activities from Colstat, the education resources, and there's the link for that. Also Purdue, the OWL English site is excellent. And also using wikis to develop creative writing skills are also out there as well. Here's what it looks like. This is the Purdue Online Writing Lab, lots of lovely ideas. And this is the next one from WAC, Writing Guides and Links for Writers. So lots of interesting information there. So that brings me to the end of this evening's presentation on writing resources. There you are, busy writing, speed writing, and as always, we love writing, okay, this much, and we practice it all the time. So to make writing an interesting and practical and much part of your classes as you can, next week we'll look at assessing writing and how we can use rubrics in different ways to assess, and it's going to be a Moodle activity. So I'm going to finish off tonight. I say ciao, and I'll be back with you in 2 weeks' time again. So you've got to have a break from me, which is quite nice. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to end this.